Good morning, everybody, and welcome to FolkScape's broadcast here, streaming live straight from the Sidmouth Folk Festival. This is day 3, and our first concert today is From Pub to Pulpit. And I'm joined by the director of that project. It involves several bands, ensembles, groups, but I'm joined by the man who's holding it all together and who initiated it, John Palmer. John, welcome. Thank you very much for coming here.
Thank you. Good morning. Pleasure.
Pub to Pulpit strikes me as going in the wrong direction.
We all end up in the pub afterwards as well, so it's kind of okay.
How did this project come about? What started it? What was the spark?
We wanted to celebrate the 150th birthday of Vaughan Williams, and the folkies will all know that he collected hundreds and hundreds of folk songs, but a lot of folkies don't know that he also wrote symphonies and he wrote brass band works, and he was a polymath in terms of music, if you like. He also edited the English hymn book in 1906, and to him that was an opportunity to give back to the working class people from whom he'd taken the folk songs, which he thought were the heart of England. He was searching for music which was quintessentially English, and he found it in folk songs. And he put folk songs through everything, through his operas, through his classical music. Folk songs are everywhere. The hymn book was his thank you, because when he got to edit the hymn book, he said, I'm going to pick some of the best folk tunes that everybody will know, and I'm going to put some of the best and most loved hymns to those folk tunes. So what we do in this concert is we have Broom Dasher, who are an a cappella group, and we have Coracle, which is multi-instrumental. We have a hurdy-gurdy and nickel harper, accordion, clarinet. And then, on the tour we've been on, which I'll tell you about later, we've had organs and choirs and cathedrals all over the country. And we start with the folk song. We go into an instrumental version of the folk song, which goes slightly kind of classical and choral. And then in comes the whole audience with the hymn sheets they've got to sing the hymn. So in 9 minutes, you go from the pub version of the song to the one you sing in church on Sunday.
Right, we'll talk about the form of performance and some of your venues in a moment, but let me get this straight. Vaughan Williams was a plagiarist who nicked folk songs from pubs, tickled them up a bit and gave them back to the church.
That's absolutely right. He did, yeah. But to be fair to him, he was saying that he was trying to find what he thought was the essence of English music. And he said the Scots have their tradition and the Welsh have theirs. There is no English tradition. And he wrote about this and he was lecturing about this. And he met a vicar's daughter in Essex who said, Mr. Vaughan Williams, I'd like you to come and meet this man. And it turned out to be Charles Potiphar, a 74-year-old farm labourer. Vaughan Williams met him and she said, Mr. Potiphar, will you sing that song that you sang to me the other day? And he said, no, I won't, my lady. And, great consternation. And she said, well, why not? He said, well, I'm in the vicarage. It's far too grand a place in the vicarage. You have to come to my cottage to hear that song. And they did go to the cottage, and he sang Bushes and Briars, which is in the show. And Vaughan Williams instantly wrote, it was as if I'd heard that all of my life. And that was what started him collecting, because he then said, this is the heart of the English people. And, of course, they weren't being written down. It was an oral tradition. Most of the people singing them couldn't read or write anyway. So that's why he kind of collected.
He was, just familiarise us a little bit more with Vaughan Williams. You all know the name, Ralph or Ralph Vaughan Williams. He never quite worked out how to pronounce that first name, did he? But as you say, all sorts of genres, all sorts of forms and purposes for his music. He wrote quite a lot of film music, I think, as well, didn't he?
He did a little bit, I think. Not a huge amount. It was much, much more, I think. Choirs was really big, and so he wrote a lot of choral music, which was premiered. For the Queen's coronation, he had more pieces in Queen Elizabeth's coronation than any other composer. He wrote about 3 operas, he did lots of classical music. The Lark Ascending is always the number 1 on those classical radio stations every year when they do the top 20. So he was very much a person who kind of got at the heart of all kinds of different music.
And still very popular. You've been touring you're in a tent today, but you've been touring grander venues than that in the last year or so.
Yeah, today it's a cathedral in canvas today, but yes, we've been touring the whole show for 12 months now. Well, since it was part of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee weekend, and we did that performance in the little village church in Gloucestershire where Vaughan Williams was born. So that was only 100 people, but beautiful, with a lovely choir. After that, we've been touring cathedrals, so we've done 20 cathedrals from Newcastle, Carlisle to Exeter, Chelmsford, Wells, Lincoln, where we work with the organ, the organist, the director of music and the choir. So everywhere we go, we have no idea what it's going to sound like till we get there and we do the final rehearsal.
Different acoustic in every church, and very appropriate for the Platinum Jubilee that you use the man who wrote the music for so much of the music for the coronation, I suppose.
Absolutely. I mean, that kind of was one of the little bits of icing on the cake, that it fitted in with the Platinum Jubilee and the significance of Vaughan Williams as a British composer. It was very important. And that was, I think, why so many directors of music from the cathedrals, when they saw this, they all wanted to be part of it. And as we've gone around the tour, they've all been writing their own arrangements of the hymn tunes, and they've given them all to us free. And if anybody wants to do this themselves, on the Broomdasher website, broomdasher.com, all the musical scores are there for free, no copyright. Any choir anywhere in the world can do it. You've got the folk song, the instrumental, and the hymn. Anybody can have that off the Broomdasher website for free.
Has it been a happy alloy? I mean, you mentioned a hurdy-gurdy and an instrument that I'm not familiar with, I confess, the nickel harper, and something called the viola da gamba with coracle, which my Spanish suggests means the violin of the prawn. But with those very much sort of old pub instruments and old, very much folky instruments, combined with vast, great church organs, cathedral organs, have they complemented each other?
Do you know, they really have, because part of the one thing we wanted to do with From Pub to Pulpit was actually a musical progression as well. So each song starts with one voice, and then as the verses go on, they harmonise, so you end up with the 5 a cappella singers singing the song in lovely harmonies. And then you've taken it to a next musical level, a different musical level, by handing that over to some of the stuff that would be in the pub. But of course, pub bands also played in churches back in Vaughan Williams' day and before that. And so that's how that goes. And then you just move straight into the organ. And honestly, the growth and the complementarity of what we're doing, it's just been a joy to listen to.
Some of those hymns, some of those tunes that Vaughan Williams created, those are tunes that we're all familiar with. If we're not churchgoers, we're all probably familiar with from school assemblies. Little Town of Bethlehem is not very seasonal here in August, but that's one that I think everybody knows, and it makes everybody feel Christmassy. But the one that you finish with, just tell us a little bit about that and how people respond to it.
Yeah, we are not going to do a Little Town of Bethlehem today, because
I'm quite glad to hear it.
We did that in the winter, we're now in the summer. We end with He Who Would Valiant Be, which is To Be a Pilgrim. And the folk song, and the interesting thing is the folk song that comes from is about sailors being called back to the Napoleonic Wars, and their wives and girlfriends saying, don't go back to sea, stay in our warm beds with us. And they're all saying, no, we're going to go back and fight.
Mad.
So it is mad. The other two, actually, if I can just say, we do I Heard the Voice of Jesus Say, and that folk song is The Murder in the Red Barn. So it's sung by a man who's just murdered his girlfriend and is about to be hanged. And that's the tune from which we get I Heard the Voice of Jesus Say. The other one we do is called Brisk Young Farmer, and it's a beautiful hymn called 'Tis Winter Now the Fallen Snow. Very lyrical, but the song is about a pregnant girl who discovers her boyfriend is unfaithful, so she hangs herself with child from a beam. And that they turn into hymns. So you can see how much kind of fun we've had in doing this.
The folk tradition is never exactly joyous, is it, in terms of the lyrics anyway? Sometimes it's rather tragic. Is there any way we can find the original words? I mean, lots of time for Jesus and pilgrims, but these sound like these are Alfred Hitchcock plots. Where can we find them?
They are, well, again, on the Broomdasher website, there is a free downloadable souvenir program of the whole tour. It's got about 36 pages in it, has all the words in it, and it's got all the background to Vaughan Williams, where he wrote, his connection with folk music, where the songs in the show have come from, photographs from various venues, all on the Broomdasher website, all free. And if you want to see all of the songs, all 800, they're in the Vaughan Williams Memorial Library at EFDSS.
And you're finishing your tour, this vast, great project, finishing at Sidmouth. What does Sidmouth mean to you?
We've been looking forward to it since we started, because we worked very closely with the Ralph Vaughan Williams Charitable Foundation when we were doing this. And they said they wanted an event to go on tour for the whole year, which would bring together the classical and the folk and the choral and cross the genre in the hope of introducing each other to different things. The last one before this was at Gloucester Cathedral, which was part of the Three Choirs Festival. And anyone out there who is a choral person will know that's the country's largest choral festival. So we've done the largest choral festival, the largest folk festival. How else could you end it?
John, it's a fantastic ending, and thanks very much for talking to us. Really looking forward to the concert this morning.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.